Live in effect, baby. Conscious approach, stream number, whatever stream number this is. I still need to tally up them stream numbers. But
Yeah.
we are here, JV Wins, Dogon SS. Thank you to everyone who is tuning in. Do your boys a big old solid. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. If you like the commentary in this or any other video, we go live each and every week. Join us, leave a comment, let us know what you think about what we have to say on these various subjects, man. We having a blast over here, kicking out this logical content. So much appreciation goes out to all of the people who have joined the tribe, and a preemptive appreciation goes out to everybody who will be joining the tribe in the future. We could not thank you enough, man. So appreciate the support. With that out of the way, we got some good stuff to get into tonight. Interesting topics to delve into. First up, we are going to discuss the queen of the world. Um,
Right.
Beyonce is the queen of the world. Let some people tell it. She runs this stuff, and she is getting into country music. So she's branching out. She's diversifying her bonds musically, and she's getting into country music. She recently released a single called "Texas Hold'em." I have not listened to the song yet.
Boy.
I don't know if I will. I don't even listen to regular Beyonce music, let alone country Beyonce music.
Boy.
I would imagine it's Beyonce's spin on country music. I would imagine.
Boy, is it ever.
But she's getting into country music. But her getting into country music raised a couple of red flags because apparently there was a radio station in Oklahoma that initially refused to play her single. But after a while, they eventually walked it back and they ended up playing it. But of course, you can't get away with anything these days without it going viral. And so it went viral that this station, by all accounts, initially was refusing to play Beyonce's music, country, her country single. And so now there's all of these conversations going on about black music artists and black people in country music. And there's all of these conversations about race and culture and blah blah blah. Okay, so we figured we'd go ahead and talk about this because why not? um and we have a bit of a sound bite here. There was a news broadcast that went into this, and they had an expert on music, who he's like an expert on music history, and he gave his thoughts on what's going on with this situation and how he feels about the apparent refusal on the part of country music to embrace black artists or so on and so forth, and just the genesis of where that kind of stuff comes from. So here is this clip here. Check this out, and then of course we'll talk about it afterwards.
During Sunday's Super Bowl, Beyonce released two new country-themed singles. But when a fan asked an Oklahoma country radio station to play one of the songs, called Texas Hold'em, Tuesday morning, he says his request was denied. Later that afternoon, the station reversed course and began playing the song. The station's general manager tells CBS News they did not have knowledge of the song at the time of the request, and the record label hadn't provided it to their station. Still, the initial denial to play Beyonce has raised questions among fans and the entertainment industry about women and Black people's place in country music. For more on this, let's bring in music journalist and author Robert Orman. Robert, I know you have covered country music for decades. You have literally written books on this topic. So tell us, first of all, what makes something...
9 of them.
I didn't want to go there, but you are essentially an expert on this. What makes something, quote unquote, country music, and where do Black artists fit in to the origins of country music?
Well, one of the coolest things about American music, and one of the reasons why it's popular all over the world, is that it is all an infusion of Black and white cultures mixing. Jazz has admitted this, rock and roll, gospel, almost all the other genres acknowledge this. Country historically has not. And that fits in really well with marketing by record companies, because the reason country was created as a style in the first place was we were in the 1920s, they separated what had been basically roots Southern music that was Black and white together, and they separated them. And they made one blues, and one country. In the beginning, that didn't work out so great because they weren't segregated enough. And there were a lot of black artists who bled into country music and a lot of white artists who bled into blues music. And it was all mixed up for a while until in the 30s and 40s and 50s, they got more and more strict about who was country, and it was basically white people.
And so when you say they, you're talking about the industry itself, right?
The record companies, yes, they created these artificial categories. In the rural South, there were no categories. It was just people making music. There were black string bands playing for hoedowns and playing for square dances. And there were white people playing blues music. And Jimmy Rogers, the father of country music, is a perfect example of that. He's basically a blues artist.
So against that backdrop then, Robert, where have black and minority women specifically fit into quote unquote country music as the art form has sort of evolved?
What my take on this is basically what the industry, the Nashville industry, continually keeps putting forward women and black artists. The country radio industry has continuously rejected them. Radio is a kind of a different animal than the industry in Nashville. The industry in Nashville brings forward Mickey Guyton and Jimmy Allen and Kane Brown and Darius Rucker and these people. Since 2000, more than 100 black artists have released country records. 3 of them have made it into the top 10. So that gives you, and the top 10, of course, is decided by who's on the radio. And who's on the radio is overwhelmingly white and male. Even though in pop music, you saw it on the Grammy Awards, it was completely dominated by women. You can't tell me that country consumers are that different than pop consumers, that for some reason they only take white men.
I want to ask you about Beyonce, especially at this moment, right?
It's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Radio rejecting the record before they've ever even heard it.
Yeah. So,
and the record doesn't even come out. The record doesn't come out until the 20th of this month. So there's no way for them to have the record when the fan requested it in the first place. But for them to say no before they've even heard it is a perfect example of what I'm talking about.
all right, Robert Orman, I'm so sorry. We'll have to leave it.
All right, there you go. So that was a bit of a longer clip than we usually play on the channel, but I couldn't really find a way to make it shorter because I felt like all of that was relevant. So it is what it is. We just played the whole 4 minutes. So there you go. That's pretty much this guy's here take on this situation and the impetus, sort of the attitude behind the environment that persists in terms of black artists and country music, specifically when it comes to radio play. But yeah, so we got this Oklahoma station that initially refused to play Beyonce's song. What did you think about this particular situation?
Honestly, I didn't think much about it until bro started spilling all the history there. That was quite informative. I appreciated that. So yes, longer than other segments, but as you mentioned, bro, that was pretty good. So with the information given from what bro just said, then yeah, it comes off as a natural, knee flex reaction to apparently black artists trying to make their way into the country scene. So yeah, at first, man, I thought it was just a whole bunch of hoopla, a whole bunch of nothing, but it seems to be a systemic thing going on in the country industry. And the stuff that he was talking about as far as the country industry, record labels and stuff like that, back in its inception, basically channeled things off, categorized them, and boxed people out, and basically created their own algorithm, their own way of pumping out music. And this is what the people want, so this is what we're going to give them, white males. So that's just an example of country. And so apparently, I knew it was going on everywhere else, shenanigans, but to hear it going on in the country industry and how they did it and how they funneled this to now is, to me, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is news to me. And so in the past, I was just like, I couldn't tell you why everybody that was listening to country were, white people. Not everybody, and most of the country artists are white males. Like, I just wrote that off. Much like how people that are not in our community write us off because it's like, well, I mean, they're all hooligans, aren't they? You know, they're all criminals. They all talk about crime and murder and sex. So it's kind of like, yeah, but it's not all of us. And, you know, whatever. So now that I hear that it's also going on over there, I mean, to me, that's a feather and the cap of what I was already saying that was going on with the hip hop industry. So in a nutshell, yeah, man, at first I was going to holler, you know, back off. They're not going to not play a Beyonce record. But the knee jerk reaction to immediately repel it before even listening to it, like the guy mentioned, yeah, is there's something going on there. So, what are your thoughts initially or overall about Beyonce getting her record shut down before the radio station even heard it?
When I first saw so if you go and run that video back,
Mhm.
if you read the radio station's response when asked to play the Beyonce song, the response is, we are a country music station. We do not play Beyonce. That was what the response was. So at first I was willing to go so far as to say, yeah, this seems like a bit of a, you know, some sort of a backhanded, underhanded thing going on.
Mhm.
But reading through that response, I don't want to say, because it could still be that, but
Mhm.
also if you're reading that response on the surface, I am inclined to also think that it's a possibility that they were telling the truth and that they genuinely didn't know about Beyonce's country music single, because they were probably operating under the assumption that the person was requesting some kind of, you know, R&B Beyonce song,
Mhm.
because of the nature of their response saying, we are a country music station and we don't play Beyonce. It kind of implies to me that what they're saying is, if it isn't country music, we won't play it.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it sparked a larger conversation around the role of, you know, non-white people in country music's ecosystem.
Mhm.
And it's interesting that that larger conversation came from initial comments that may have been, you know, genuine in terms of what where the radio station was coming from.
Mhm.
I kind of feel like once the radio station realized, oh snap, there actually is a country Beyonce song out there, it seemed like they reversed course on that.
Mhm.
But be that as it may, I think that what the guy was talking about in the video is pretty interesting stuff. And it reminded me of a lot of the topics that we've talked about when we've talked about music that comes from our own community, and how music was assigned to us
Right.
intentionally by record labels with the intent to categorize certain groups of people, or rather with the attempt to categorize certain types of music based upon, you know, where people come from and all of that kind of thing. And you were saying, hey man, this is the music industry as a whole. This goes on in every genre, not just ours. This is going on everywhere. We just don't pay attention as much to other genres, so we don't notice it as much.
Mhm.
Here you go. This is a prime example of how the country music industry did the same thing with country music that these record labels were doing with hip hop music back in the late 70s and early 80s,
Mhm.
when they decided that they were going to assign us a particular type of music, despite the fact that what we were clamoring for was a bit more diverse in nature. So it's just interesting to see that it's happening across the board, even when it comes to a person as big as Beyonce. It's still a thing. And you know, the interesting thing about it is, the reason why this has been such an effective strategy is because the messaging has been impressed upon the people to believe it. So, you know, we as in our community, we genuinely think that it's like we think of it as not necessarily akin to our culture to do country music. Remember when we talked about Lenny Kravitz? I think when we talked about Lenny Kravitz with rock and roll, I think I brought up Darius Rucker and Jimmy Allen, right?
Mhm.
So those were two people that guy brought up in his explanation.
Mhm.
And I talked about my experiences in Tallahassee working through my company, and Jimmy Allen was the headlining artist at this show that mostly features country music artists. He's a black artist. I wanted to see if there were any black people who were going to be out and support it. And not that I was surprised to see there were none, because we have bought into this hugely successful psyop of an operation, which has brainwashed us into believing that we are supposed to adhere to only this particular kind of music. And it extends across genres. It's not just the ones that we are the most familiar with. So when we look at people like Lenny Kravitz, we call him an other. You look at people like Jimmy Allen, he's an other. You look at people like Darius Rucker, we consider him to be an other, even though, and you don't have to take our word for it, you can just watch that clip. This guy documented the way that Black people have roots going all the way back to the inception initially of country music. So we've been involved in all of this kind of stuff. And, I think it's high time that we all come to realize it, because until we do, we'll continue to allow the music industry to box us into these various categories, which end up affecting us in various other aspects of American life, I think. So I think it's interesting because Beyonce is such a big name that this happening with a song made by her is what's going to cause the controversy and is what's going to get people talking about it. But trust and believe, this has been going on forever. And it is what it is. It's just interesting to see that this is an example of it playing out in country music. But now I see what you've been saying this whole time about how this is an intentional thing that the music industry does to participate in the bracketing of people into categories so that you can more easily control the population.
Yep.
And so from that standpoint, not that I'm the biggest Beyonce fan in the world, but if Beyonce gets into country music and is successful, it helps to sort of break away from those shackles. K. Michelle is somebody who's also been doing it, but of course that doesn't get much headway because she's not nearly as famous as Beyonce. But K. Michelle been said, I'm done with this Black music stuff. Let me go over here and do this country music thing. And, of course, you got the Jimmy Allens and the Darius Ruckers and several others. There's a bunch of other Black people doing country music. I think we need to stop looking at them as others, because when you continue to look at them as others, you continue to do the bidding of the music industry, and you continue to contribute to what their ultimate goal is, which is to try to control you through intentional forms of content that force you to act in a particular manner.
Yeah, man. Well said, bro. The Beyonce angle, I was a little trepidatious whenever I heard that she was gonna be partaking in country. Immediately became cynical to it all. I just felt like she just, I think it's a money thing. I thought it was just a money thing. Most likely it is, but just trying to branch out and do something else to another channel and make more money, just create another revenue stream. When I heard the song, I only heard the Texas Hold'em thing. I didn't know there was 2 songs. I'll cringe to that later. No, I mean, I have to hear it. I gotta hear it. But the me personally, just listening to the Texas Hold'em song, I'm not a fan of it. It's way too much going on. What's that song? It's kind of like that.
Crazy Love.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, but country. The beat's a little too up tempo, and I heard the second one's a little, slow or whatever. Maybe that's better, but I just didn't like where it was coming from. I felt like it's Lil Wayne when he was picking up the guitar. It's nothing wrong with people trying to branch out, because there's nothing initially wrong with. It's like, hey, I'm an artist. I'm allowed to paint with oil pastels or charcoal, and I'm not going to sit here and tell them that they can't. All right. But when you go into the oil pastel market, there's a whole bunch of people over there that's got the right stroke game. And so, I mean, I appreciate your efforts, but you're drawing like this is charcoal. So my point is that, kudos to her. I mean, we saw 3 Stacks venture out and do something different. So she doesn't always have to make R&B ballads. She's more than welcome to get into the country market. I just personally, I would have anticipated a little bit more. I thought it was going to be a little bit more country. It's no different than those phases that we had in the early 2000s when they had Hindi music playing in the background.
Yeah,
You know, and all that other stuff. It was like, oh snap, hey. And it's like, all right, man, but you know, this is not really the real thing. So, hey, man, you know, she's going down this path. More power to her. I don't know how the Hive is going to feel about this. And honestly, this is, and I bet her fans, it's going to be no different than the Drake fans convincing themselves that they like the dogs for all of my dogs thing. It's going to be the same mental wraparound of, oh, I can see, nah, yeah, bang that in your whip, you know. So we'll see what's going down with this, but I like the fact that all of this stuff is being brought to the table. This is pretty interesting. I already knew we had roots in country. I did not know the record label collusion. Now that is very interesting. So for this to be brought to the forefront, I like that. And yeah, man, more power to more people who want to make any kind of music, not just country, not just rock, man. You know, follow who, you know, the 3 Stacks route or whatever. I like the fact that we're just branching out and not pigeonholing ourselves to 808s and boom bats. So yeah, man. I like the revolution. I thought it was just a money thing, but nah, man, let's get artistic. You know, let's branch out.
Remember Bubba Sparks?
Oh man, Bubba, man.
That's what this reminded me of, but in reverse. Like in the early 2000s when Timbaland brought Bubba Sparks into rap and he was trying to infuse country and rap.
Yeah.
And you know, it was met with mixed results, to be sure.
The beats were
but
hard,
I think
though.
yeah, the beats, because it's Timbo, man. That was prime Timbo too. That was prime Timbaland. But like the majority of the resistance towards it came from this idea that a person who looks and sounds like Bubba Sparks with that drawl shouldn't be in this community. Right. And I think that the resistance that comes from, you know, Beyonce or any other black artist for that matter being a part of country music comes from this internal, you know, preconceived notion that you know, we shouldn't be there because that belongs to the others, when it really doesn't belong to the others, because we've always been involved. It's just they tricked you into believing that we've never been involved.
Correct.
And like I hear you on the Beyonce thing. This is not me championing Beyonce being in country music per se, but rather Beyonce is such a huge lightning rod. If her getting involved in country music means that it can get other people from our community paying attention to other black artists who do country, who do it better than her, who've been doing it longer than her.
Right.
You know, then I feel like that's a win, because it contributes to us breaking away from these weirdo preconceived notions that keep us boxed in societally. So that's where I think the benefit of it can come from. Not necessarily that I'm clamoring for Beyonce to be a successful country artist, because I don't. That's whatever to me. I don't get that. I'm thinking more so about these other country artists who are black, who have been doing it. Who they come from, they live in these communities, they make this music, they've been doing it longer than her, they're better than her at it. And so if she's the gateway to get us to see that, then fine, I'll take it. It is what it is.
And so check me out. And so this is my thing about country, and because I've heard before, part of the reason why I had that theory before, because I've talked to people who were country music fans, and they had the same complaints about the commercialization of their music. They just couldn't stand it. Everything was watered down pop country. And so I was hearing the same complaints. And so now with the revolution, I guess, with, you know, all of these people, because I didn't even know, I thought all of these people gravitating towards country was, you know, like I said, a cash grab. But I'm really starting to think that people are just wanting to make good tunes. And but the thing is that I couldn't stand about the music is the drawl, is the tone. You know, why do they have to say it in a, you know, a generic country voice? You know, it seems fake and not authentic. because everybody doesn't sound like that. And I'm like, okay, well, can that be country where they're just talking regular? If you guys know the person, please let me know. Because that was my problem with Beyonce doing this. I was hoping she didn't, try to put some type of draw on her voice, and she was doing that, and it was weird. And she's trying to hit high notes with that. To me, it was just nails on a chalkboard. Sorry, Beehive. I just couldn't deal with it. And so,
yeah.
So I'm just hoping that with the new infusing of blood going into the music, hopefully, people can make a country ballad, similar to Nas X, pause, but in a way where it's a lot more palatable. And so I would like to get in the country, honestly.
Yeah, I hear all of that, and yeah, my retort to that is perhaps this opens up the gateway for us to seek out the black artists who make country music who don't do that, because they're out there and they do their thing. It's just they're a part of the country community, and we don't pay attention to it because we look at it as an other thing. And I think that I just don't like that other stuff. How I feel about that. I do not like the way black people will at times through art and entertainment categorize other black people as other, just because you've bought into this psyop that has tricked you into believing that black people only make one particular kind of art or entertainment.
It is a psyop.
When that is absolutely not true. So because I have such a kind heart, I will say good luck to Beyonce. Because I want to see people succeed. I don't have no ill will towards her. I do hear what you're saying, though, and I suspected that might be the case, which is why I knew I wasn't going to listen to the songs. But I think it can symbolize something, much more, much more positive than that. And so that's kind of what I'm aiming for.
Right on. Good luck, B. Skrrr.
Yeah.